So coming to standing, we'll inhale, stretch up the hands, and then exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, lift and lengthen through the spine, and exhale to your Chaturanga Dandasana, elbows in. Inhale, come forwards for your upward facing dog, and then exhale, see if you can roll over your toes to get to downward facing dog. Make any adjustments here, and then take 5 slow breaths, lengthening through the neck and the spine, pulling the tummy in, stretching the heels down to the floor if that's available to you. Then with an inhale, stepping lightly on the mat, bring the feet to the hands and lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, come up, stretch the hands up high, and exhale to standing. Good. Next one then. Inhale, raise the hands, reach up, maybe a little back bend, and then exhale, come to that nice forward fold, stretching into the hamstrings. Inhale, draw that spine out nice and long, and then exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana, keeping the elbows in. Inhale, scoop forwards for your upward facing dog. Keep the shoulders very low, and exhale to downward facing dog. 5 breaths here. And we can just try a few little jumps here if you want to. From there, you could try jumping all the way up to the hands and lengthening out the spine. Then exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, stretch up, and exhale to standing. Good. Next one. Inhale, raise the hands, really reach up, and exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, lift and lengthen through the spine, and exhale to your Chaturanga Dandasana. Make sure you have those hands nicely planted with the fingers spread. Inhale, draw that chest forwards through the upper arms for the upward facing dog, and exhale to downward facing dog. And then we've got the option of raising the right leg. So just lift it as high as you can. Try not to let the right hip twizzle outwards. Hold the leg out nice and straight. You could see if you could spread the toes, keep the tummy pulled in, and keep the breathing nice and slow and regular. Then with the inhale, shifting the weight forward so you can put the foot down silently, lengthen the spine, and then exhale, fold deeply. Inhale, come all the way up, stretching up, maybe lifting the chest into a back bend, and exhale to standing. Next one, inhale, raise the hands, exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift and lengthen through the spine, and exhale, step or jump to your Chaturanga Dandasana, elbows in. Inhale, draw that chest forwards for your upward facing dog, and exhale to downward facing dog. And the option to raise the left leg here. Nice and strong and straight and high, spread the toes. Try and keep the weight so that it feels equal between the two hands. There can be a little bit of a tendency to roll the weight away from that lifted leg. Then again, shifting the weight forward, my shoulders are over the wrists there, and lift and lengthen through the spine. Exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, come up, and exhale to standing. Great, let's have the last one of these then. So inhale, raise the hands, really stretching up, ribcage lifts away from the hips, and exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift and lengthen through the spine, and exhale to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. So again, if you want to try a few jumps here, you could do that. We're trying to get the shoulders and the hips over the hands. So if we can catch even a nanosecond of balance there. And then you can jump the feet to the hands, lengthen the spine, and exhale, fold. Inhale, come up, reach up, stretch up high, and exhale to standing. Well done. Let's move along to Surya Namaskar B. So bending the knees, come to chair pose, and then exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, and exhale to your Chaturanga Dandasana. With an inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. Then stepping lightly is right foot forward, left foot flat, and reach the hands up. And exhale, come back to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog, exhale, downward facing dog, and inhale, left foot forward, right foot flat, warrior. Exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana, and inhale, upward facing dog, exhale, downward facing dog. So 5 breaths here, really lengthening out the spine, pulling the tummy in. Let the back of the neck feel nice and long, owing to the weight of the head drawing down. Slow, steady Ujjayi breathing. And then inhale, bring the feet to the hands, come halfway up with a long back. Exhale, fold deeply, bend your knees. Inhale, lift up the hands back to chair pose, and exhale, straighten up. Good, second one, inhale, chair pose. And as you exhale, fold down to that forward bend. Inhale, draw the spine out nice and long, and then exhale, step or jump to your Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, right foot steps forward, and the left heel is flat on the floor as you reach up and find your balance. Then the exhale brings us back to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale to upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing. Inhale, left foot forward, right foot nice and flat, find your balance and reach up, and exhale to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. So counting these nice slow breaths here, nice opportunity to reconnect. So just as we do in Shavasana, we are staying fully aware of the sensations of the body and the movement of the breath. So try not to let yourself get tangled up in thoughts here. You're just experiencing what's going on. With the next inhale, you could step or jump the feet to the hands, lengthening the spine, and exhale, fold forward. Then bend your knees. Inhale, lift up the hands into chair pose, and exhale, straighten it. Good, third one, inhale, chair pose. Exhale, take a nice forward fold, stretching deeply into those hamstrings, and then inhale, unfurl that chest. Exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana, and inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, see if you can roll over the toes to get to your down dog, and then inhale, it's right foot forward, left foot flat, reaching up as you lunge down for warrior, and exhale to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing. Then it's inhale, left foot forward, right foot flat, warrior, and exhale to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. And then we can let that right leg come up. This time, let's bend the knee, drop the foot over, and we will allow that right hip to twizzle up towards the sky. Try and keep the weight equal in both hands. Again, there'll be a tendency to shift the weight a little bit, but we can modify that and bring it back again. So those hands are really pressing fully into the mat with the fingers spread wide. And try and pull the tummy in as well. And then it's inhale to bring the feet to the hands, stepping lightly on the mat. Exhale, fold, bend your knees. Inhale, come back to chair pose, and exhale, straightening up. Good. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift and lengthen. And exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, right foot forward, left foot flat, warrior, and exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, left foot forward, right foot flat, warrior, And exhale, sweeping back down to Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, chest comes forward, looking up a little, and exhale, downward facing dog. 5 breaths here. Again, the option to raise the left leg this time. Bend the knee, drop the foot over behind you, twizzling that left hip upward and tucking the right hip under you. We're looking out under the left arm. And then inhale, bring those feet to the hands and lengthen out the spine. And exhale, fold. Bend the knees. Inhale, lift up the hands. And exhale, straighten it. One more then. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, right foot forward, left foot flat, warrior. And exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, left foot forward, right foot flat, reaching up as you lunge down. And exhale, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog for 5 breaths. Pushing the mat away from you, allowing the chest to sink down in between the shoulders. Long spine, tummy pulls in, heels reach down to the mat. If your feet are totally flat on the mat, if the heels are right down, look at your toes and then lift the toes up away from the floor. With the next inhale, step or jump to bring the feet to the hands and lengthen out the spine, then exhale, fold. Bend the knees, inhale, lift the hands, and exhale, straighten. Good stuff. So let's lift the hands up and come into a nice standing forward bend. So we're just looking for a nice stretch into those hamstrings. So just come as far forward as you need to come. You might take a hold of the big toes and pull yourself down into the stretch if you're feeling a little more flexible, or you could have a bend at the knees to just soften that hamstring stretch a little bit if you want to. So keep that breathing nice and slow and steady. And then for the second one of these, we'll just come up and then we'll tuck these hands underneath the feet. Let the head come down. And have the knees bent as much as you want to for this one, that's fine. But if you have been practicing a while, then you might be able to start to straighten those legs. So after these standing forward bend, we're going to come into Bird of Paradise, which is our more advanced bind and balance. But if you don't want to do that, do just stay in either of these 2 standing forward bends. So if you're going for the Bird of Paradise, we can just thread the left arm underneath the left leg and see if we can make our way up to standing, find the balance and maybe extend the leg for a few breaths. And then just have a little go on both sides. So just a little bit of fun this one, trying to find that balance as you come up, bringing that leg with you. And trying to make everything as tall and spacious as possible. So whatever options you took there, just take a little wiggle in your standing forward bend and then roll yourself up to standing. And then we're just going to come to tree pose, standing on the right leg. So we'll just bring that left foot up. It might be against the calf muscle or against the thigh muscle, and we're just letting that left knee open to the side, keeping the waist nice and long by lifting the rib cage away from the hip. Slow, steady breathing, noticing the weight in the foot and as many other sensations in the body as you can find. Let's try that on the other side. So left leg becomes the standing leg and the right foot comes up. Right knee just exploring its way out to the side to rotate that hip in the socket. So we're going to take 2 further postures to move into these external rotations, but if they don't feel like they're for you, then please return to this tree pose. So the next one, we're just crossing that left ankle up onto the right leg and then bending the knee. Hands are at the heart centre there. So just see how much of a bend you can have in that standing leg and drop the left knee open. When you've held that for around about 5 breaths, just make your way in on the other side. So left leg is the standing leg, right ankle comes just above that knee so that when you bend the knee of the standing leg, the foot stays on the top of the leg there. Hands in prayer pose and just challenging yourself to come down quite low into that single leg squat and to drop the right knee out so we have that external rotation. Good stuff. So from here we can move on into half lotus if you want to. So again, the right leg is the standing leg and we're just bringing that left foot up, this time the heel close to the hip bone, and just carefully making your way down into the forward fold if that's available to you. If it isn't, you can stay standing up tall. So we're just aiming to have that foot tucked up high by the hip bone so that when we fold over, that foot comes into the fleshy part of the tummy between the hip bones and the rib cage. There's a bit more space for it. You can come up by slightly bending the standing leg and then just carefully making your way out. So after 5 breaths you can make your way in on the other side. Left leg, the standing leg, right hip, the externally rotated one, adding the forward bend if you wish. Remember to keep the slow, steady breathing and also resting your attention on the sensations in the body. So it may well be quite a strong stretch around the hip of the lotus leg. And making your way up when you're ready. So let's come to a balancing twist. Again with the weight on the right leg, you can lift the left leg either with a bent knee and the opposite hand coming across, free hand reaching back, or perhaps taking hold of the big toe of that left foot with the right hand. Tricky to balance this because you're not facing forward, and that just makes balancing really a bit more challenging. So when you're ready, have a go with the left leg as the standing one. So lifting the right leg, left hand comes across. Or you might extend that leg and instead of resting that left hand by the knee, you're taking hold of the big toe, twizzling that upper body around and extending that right arm out, looking out to the side. Brilliant. So from here, let's come into a goddess pose, a wide stance with the toes turned out, and we'll push the palms forwards and bend the knees and sit down really quite low and very slow, and then come back up. Don't straighten the legs totally as you come back up. We're going from a squat to a deeper squat, really. 5 of those. Make it very slow and very controlled. And then we'll stretch those interlaced hands up and release. Let's just turn the feet so the toes point forwards, and then we can come into our wide leg standing forward bends. So first one, the hands can be as far forward as they need to be to get you a nice straight back. Over time you might be able to have those hands in line with the feet. If you do, press them into the floor, squeeze the elbows in towards one another. Notice the weight in the feet and the sensation of the breath. After 5 breaths, make your way up on an inhale, stretching those hands up nice and high. And then as you exhale, bring the hands onto the hips. Inhale, lift the chest, lengthen the front body, and exhale, come over. So remember to try and hold that back out straight, using its own strength. Bring the shoulders back away from the ears in the opposite of a shrug. And hopefully with those hands on the hips, you'll feel that it's the pelvis that's turned over to bring you into that forward fold. And the hip bones are folded down close towards the thighs. Check that you haven't sent all the weight back into the heels, so use the whole of the foot to bear the weight. Pull the tummy in and keep that breathing nice and slow and under your control. With the next inhale, come up and stretch the hands up, and then exhale, bring the hands behind you and interlace the fingers. We inhale, lift the chest, and exhale, come forward. And just let those arms fall away from the back if they want to. Again, straight spine, tummy pulls in. Good distribution of weight along the length of the feet. And just enjoy the sensation of stretch through the shoulders. We're not trying to push that. You could do damage if you push. So it's more of an allowing the shoulders to do what they need to do in this pose. Inhale, come up, stretch the hands high, and exhale, bring them down onto the fronts of the thighs. Inhale, lift the chest, and exhale, come forward. So the hands can slide down just wherever they get to. You might hold on to the big toes or the ankles, you might not, no worries. If the arms want to bend, just have the elbows bending out to the side. Slow, steady breathing. So we're just going to come into our twists here. You might need a slightly narrower stance. Then we're just crossing the arms, and with the left arm in front, we're rotating clockwise until we can look out under that left arm. Coming out of that twist, we can cross the right arm in front, rotate the body anti-clockwise, and begin to look out under that right arm. And then gently coming out of that twist, we can just experiment with a wide stance, sliding the feet towards the mat ends, maybe coming down onto the elbows, and just finding a stretch in the insides of the thighs. Let's heel toe those feet in, and then walk ourselves around to a downward facing dog with a good placement of the hands, fingers spread wide. And we're just coming to our downward facing dog twist here. So bring the left arm across to the right ankle. Push that left hand firmly into the mat. See if you can work all the way up into the shoulder. So there isn't a sense of collapsing in this posture. You're working, there's a sensation of lifting into the shoulder. And when you're ready, just change hands. Again, working up into that left shoulder. Coming back to downward facing dog, taking any little wiggles you want to take. Maybe stretching the back of the wrist before we come into our plank challenge. So we're on 8 breaths. So making your way into side plank. So as always, there's a few options in this one. You could have your weight on the elbow rather than on the straight arm. That's a good bet if the wrists are getting a little tired. It doesn't really make the posture itself any easier other than that. Legs strong and straight, feet flexed and stacked one on top of the other, and we're trying to lift through the hips. And this should build a lot of strength around the waist. And if you've been doing this challenge since the beginning of the year, you're probably feeling those changes right now. So after 8 breaths in side plank, we'll come to regular plank, 2 hands on the floor. And you can really push up into the shoulders here to work a little harder. Check that you're not locking out at the elbows as well, so you can have a little tiny outward bend of the elbows. So really working strongly into the arms and the shoulders, as well as into the abdominals. Keep the tummy pulled in as well. Slow, steady breathing. When you've taken your 8 breaths in middle plank, regular plank, we can come to side plank on the other side. So again, feet stacked, hips lift, strong core. And when you're done, just taking a little rest in child's pose. So folding the legs underneath you and sitting back towards the heels, letting the upper body tumble forward. From here, we're going to make our way up into puppy pose. Now, this is quite a nice upper back bend. So from child's, you're just lifting your hips so the thighs are vertical, extending those arms out in front of you and letting the chest sink down towards the floor. Now, depending how much flexibility you have, you might have the forehead or even the chin on the floor. So just see what you have and let that chest sink right down in between the shoulders. So making your way up, and just in case you want a little bit more strength work, we'll just do a few Chaturanga push-ups here. So making your way back into plank, we can slowly lower to Chaturanga Dandasana and then just push ourselves back up by pushing the floor away. Now it'd be good to build up to 5 or so of these. So just see where you're at. We want it to be very slow. You're not using gravity or momentum to do this work. The muscles are engaged the whole time. And then after you've done 5 or so, come back to downward facing dog, walk those feet forwards and out, and we'll just come to our squat. So with the toes turned out maybe, or if you've been practicing this a little while now, those toes might be pointing forwards. And you might be able to raise the hands up. Now when we begin, we sort of use these elbows in front of the shins as a lever to help us stay in position. But after a while, you could experiment with the hands coming up. All right, when you're done, make your way into Cobblers Pose. Soles of the feet together and knees falling out to the side. So as a variation to Cobbler's Pose, we can slide those feet forwards a little bit and experiment with a forward lean. Now, as always, that needs to be a tilting forwards of the pelvis, so you need to roll onto the front parts of your sitting bones, and you can fold yourself forward. Or if you're feeling really brave and really crazy, you could have a go at starting to thread the arms through under the back of the legs and seeing whether they might meet behind you. So it's a little bit fiddly. It's not too bad with the first leg, because you can use the other hand to help you, as I am here. So really trying to reach that hand as far back as you can and trying to get the back of the knee up by the shoulder, but it's a bit harder to do with the second arm. So you could just have them resting on the floor, or you might begin to bend those elbows and perhaps catch a hold of your clothing, or you might even be able to catch hold of the fingers together. It's not something I can do yet. So other variations, other things to play with, you can climb one foot on top of the other and then just see about tucking your head down behind the feet. Sort of getting close to having the feet behind the head when you do that. These are all just options, of course. You might just be relaxing in that diamond pose. That's totally fine. So wherever you are, just make your way out and slide the legs out straight. We're going to come into a seated forward bend, so stretching the hands up and then keeping the arms and the body into one straight line as you angle forwards onto the fronts of the sitting bones. And just stay here. So this might only be a few degrees, this forward lean, that's fine. Use the strength of the back and the arms to maintain that straight line. And if you want to do a little bit of strength work, just finish off by placing the hands down and lifting the bottom, or maybe the feet as well. Okay, good stuff. Let's have another try at Marichyasana A. So with the left leg straight and the right leg bent, we are coming into that forward lean again on the front part of the sitting bones and seeing if we can wrap that right arm around the bent leg and then join the fingers behind us. If that bind isn't happening, no worries, just concentrate on a straight back seated forward bend, which is a bit of a challenge with that flexed hip there. The foot just needs to be a little bit out to the side. So we can come into that pose on the other side, bending the left leg, wrapping the left arm around. You need to twizzle the shoulder in its socket to do that. Just have a little experiment. If when you bend the elbow, the hand just comes straight down to the floor rather than going behind the back, it's because you haven't rotated that shoulder in its socket yet. And it might be that that movement simply isn't available to you at the moment. So just leave it if that's the case, no problem. So Marichyasana B is the same as A, but with a half lotus leg, or as a modification, a seated tree leg. So foot resting on the floor. So we've got the right leg bent up and the left leg in the lotus position here. And again, reaching around, looking for that bind behind us. And resist the urge to roll forward and curl up into a little ball, but try and lengthen out the spine. So when you're ready, just untangle from that pose and have a little go on the other side. So first you'll need to bring the lotus leg into position if you're doing that. And then you'll bend that left knee up. Shift the weight onto the front of the sit bone so that lotus leg is resting on the floor. And wrap around to take the bind. If you've not gone for the half lotus, then that foot is just going to be resting on the floor, which makes this posture a lot easier, a lot nicer. But both of these are an external rotation at the hip, so they're both doing good work. So literally just select which one works for your body at the moment. Try and find length by drawing the spine out. Slow, steady breathing. Okay, so we can make our way out and untangle and just have a little go at Marichyasana C. So bending that right leg up again, we can turn into a twist. So modified version, just letting that arm come across and take a gentle twist. But if you want to find the bind, you just need to get close to that knee so that the armpit can be hugging against the top of the knee and the hands can come together behind the back. Sitting as tall as you can and looking out over that shoulder there. So untangling, have a little go on the other side. So bending that left knee, just pushing it a little bit over the midline, helps it to be in the right position to come under the back of the armpit there. And the hands clasping behind the back. Sitting up as tall as you can, particularly in the upper back. There's a tendency to round into this posture, which is not great at all. So really work on finding space and being tall in the posture. Okay, that's brilliant. So let's come out of that and just give the shoulders a little wiggle, especially if you did do those binding options. And we're just going to come into some strength poses for our headstand preparation. So from tabletop pose, clasping the hands and just walking forwards with the feet and pressing those elbows into the floor so that the chest lifts as far away from the mat as it can. So the closer in you walk the feet, the harder the work should be, and that's because you're sending more weight down through the shoulders. So when you're ready, you can come out and take a little rest. And then you can either repeat that again, or you can come into a headstand preparation by placing the back of the head into clasped hands here and walking the feet in. So you still want to maintain that idea of pressing the elbows into the floor, so there's a lot of lift and not much weight on the head. And over time you might be able to walk your feet in and float them up. That's because you've walked so far that the hips pass beyond the line of the shoulders and the legs just aren't long enough to stay on the floor anymore. If you can resist kicking up, you will build the strength that you need for headstand. If you kick up, you'll go up before you're strong enough and you'll be dumping a lot more weight on the head and neck than you should. If you've been doing headstand a long time, you might want to try these leg lowers and lifts. So again, it's about shifting the weight of the bottom behind the midline so that when the feet fall down towards the floor, the whole thing doesn't collapse. So you lower the feet, you send the bottom back by an equivalent amount, and then you straighten everything up by drawing the hips forwards and the legs up straight. So it's just quite fun to play around with this balance. The only way to do it is experientially. You just have to feel it. And it all depends on the weight of the legs and the bottom and all that kind of stuff. But once you've got that, then you can use that technique to come down quite gently, which is what I did there. Child's pose is a nice counter pose for headstand. You might want to give the head and neck a little shake as well. So after this, we'll just make our way up and come to a back bend position. So knees are bent and we're lying flat on the back. And then pressing those feet into the floor and trying to have the toes pointing forwards. We're just lifting the hips as much or as little as they want to. We're going to do 3 of these, round about 5 breaths in each, and just hugging the knees into the chest in between and lifting the chin up to those knees, so you're rounding the back the other way. So you might want to do 3 little ones the same. You might do a little bit more back bending in each, the second and then the third, it really depends on how your back feels. My back feels different all the time. Sometimes it wants a real decent back bend or even wheel pose. Other times, not so much. Just want to stay with a nice gentle back bend. These counter poses should feel really nice. Lots of options, lots of variations in these back bends. You can walk up onto the shoulders, you can clasp the hands, you can bring the hands underneath the rib cage, you could hold onto the heels, whatever feels like fun. So after your third back bend, we'll just come over into a passive twist. So just let those legs fall over to the right hand side. You can rest your right hand on top of the knees and turn away to look towards the left hand, which is reaching out to the left side. And then when you're ready, just bring that gentle twist around to the other side. And then from here we'll make our way into Shavasana. So whichever version is right for you, that might be lying flat on the back, legs straight. You could have the knees bent up, or you could have the soles of the feet together, knees falling out to the side. You can even lie on your tummy or on your side. What's important is that you're lying in a way that's comfortable, so there aren't any muscles or joints bothering you, calling for your attention. And as you come into the stillness of Shavasana, there's less for your mind to concentrate on potentially. We're not worrying about difficult poses or balances or anything like that. But we can start to explore the subtler sensations of lying in stillness. So the breath is an obvious one. Just notice what the breath's doing. Follow that breath in and out. You might like to count the breaths in your Shavasana. And notice any time you lose count and wander away into thinking. And when that happens, just start again. And this can be quite a useful measure. You might find that it's not possible to do more than 2 or 3 breaths without feeling like you've lost your concentration and you've started thinking. And then over time that might increase until you get to a point where you might be able to meditate on 100 breaths, which is quite a nice length of time to be fully focused and away from your thoughts. So resist any urges to fidget unless there is some real discomfort in the body. Just try and stay in this stillness and notice the sensations. And then when you're ready, just begin to bring a little bit of movement into the body. You might hug the knees into the chest and move around from side to side. You might roll over onto your side. And then you could just very gently begin to make your way up to a seated position. So with an inhale, let's stretch the hands up, and exhale, bring them down into the centre of the chest. And we can finish with our 10-finger gratitude again. So just tapping together each pair of fingers, and with each tap, naming to yourself something that you're grateful for today. So you have to come up with 5 things. And then when you're done, bowing forwards to close your practice.